welcome to Intertwined 2024 Untold Stories. Woo! So we have 9 storytellers this evening who have spent a lot of time and energy crafting these beautiful stories, untold stories of struggle, transformation, and triumph. And they are going to share with you. We had one storyteller who is unfortunately ill tonight, so we're all going to send our love to Lance, who is unable to be here. The stories you're going to hear, some of them are extremely beautiful, and some things may be a little bit disturbing for you to hear. And we're going to be honoring the principles of LACE: love, authenticity, courage, and empathy. And again, the storytellers have put lots of courage and authenticity into their stories, and we're asking that you give your love and empathy to them. So we're going to hear a few words from our Vice President of Equity and Inclusion, Dr. Yvette Alexis-Enso.
Good evening, everyone. Wonderful round of applause again for Abigail. As I was thinking about what to share tonight, I just want to remind us that we all appreciate music because it's the universal language that sort of brings our hearts together. And last night I had the good opportunity and the fortune of being here and listening to these stories. And for me, they are like music, the universal language of connection. So I hope that you will enjoy. Thank you for being here.
Hello everyone, my name is Tyler.
And I'm Rory.
And as we're all gathered here in one space, we must intentionally acknowledge how the state and the University of Oregon was built off the exploitation, deception, and colonization of the U.S. government. To the people of the Kalapuya Aliki. Due to treaties made in 1851 and 1855, the United States government gave themselves permission to violently dispossess Kalapuyan people of their indigenous homeland. Today, the Kalapuyan descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon.
To learn more about the history of Indigenous peoples and the land we find ourselves upon, you can visit native-land.ca. We express our respect for all federally recognized tribal nations of Oregon and all other displaced Indigenous peoples who call Oregon their home. The people of these tribes continue to make important contributions to our communities and are thriving and surviving with us today.
Okay, we're now going to start your first adventure of Intertwine. In a moment, you're going to turn to somebody that you haven't spoken to before. And there's going to be a storyteller and a listener. The storyteller is going to tell a short story of how they got here today. And the listener is just going to listen. You may begin. Talking. Now, the listener is going to repeat back everything they heard and remember that the storyteller said. You may go. Okay, next step. The two roles are going to switch. The listener becomes the storyteller, and the storyteller becomes the listener. Make sure you're listening. You can.
Alright, and now the listener will reflect back what they heard. Alrighty, let's bring it back together again. We love that you're so excited with your stories. Let's focus it back up. Amazing. Thank you all for participating. We'll get to more stories in just a little bit. Okay, so now I would like to make a note that our stories tonight do include some topics that can elicit trauma responses within those who have experienced them. This is including, but not limited to, racism, sexual violence, child abuse, and mental health struggles. We encourage you to lean into the space with curiosity and compassion while also taking really good care of yourself.
Lastly, we would like to acknowledge that violence erupts from ignorance that grows from hate. We remind everybody to remember that their voices hold power, and we encourage everyone to remember who they have promised to serve. Abuse, violence, rape, genocide, and bombing of any identity is absolutely unacceptable.
So many are in pain, but if you could do anything at all to ease someone's at least a little bit, you could do so with your voice.
But how does one know when to use their voice? Listening. Listening leads to relationships, listening leads to learning. Listening leads to how we understand, how we grow, and how we come to new truths. Tonight, you're gonna see how the art of storytelling reaches far more than the ears. And you'll notice as you're listening will permeate your mind down to your heart, creating a full body experience. There will be a brief intermission halfway through the show.
These stories, once silenced, erased, or never given the time, tonight we hold space for those who have been hidden from the light.
Members of the audience, I stand before you today, a humbly, inconceivably, utterly gorgeous person. I'm signing autographs after the show. Now, I don't mean to be facetious, but I truly believe I'm gorgeous. When I met a former partner of mine, those were their first words. You are gorgeous. This story is about the intoxicating rush of a new relationship and the pain of withdrawal when it ends. Movement 1, euphoria. I love to be flattered. Who doesn't? But more than being flattered, I love to be known, to have my inconsistencies and idiosyncrasies cataloged and kept sacred in another's mind. When me and the former partner talked, they made the effort to know me. My fears, my joys, my highly specific and borderline insane food opinions regarding tomatoes. They learned it all. Nothing was off limits. What's your relationship like with your parents? Do you like flowers? Are you a top or a bottom? What's your favorite dessert? What would you dream to do with all the money in the world? It was those kind of questions that made us feel so connected. However, it was illusory. We didn't really know each other, at least not by textbook definitions. We'd never met. But damn, it did not feel that way. We were so close. They were comfortable enough to ask me, "Will you help me move into my dorm?" And I obviously said yes. That was the sign. That was the sound I've been waiting to hear. There was connection, but being relied on meant it was real. Movement 2. Reality. We were walking outside the Mayor Music Building when I have a horrifying realization. I've never held hands in public. Never been close to someone in that way. I've never done gay shit before. So, we're walking side by side, sharing physical space, and it's good, but not good enough. Then we're arm in arm. Frisky, I know, but it's good. It felt so good to be close to someone. When you really like someone, is there a better feeling? Closeness. So they stick out their hand trying to hold mine. And I can feel anxiety flare up from my feet to my chest. Burning so hot it eats away at the air I'm trying to breathe. And my surroundings blur. Texas. And I'm closeted, and I'm scared, and I'm checking to see if anyone is watching me. And in my head, I hear my mother say, "If you ever act like those people, I will knock your 2 front teeth out your mouth." What was I to do? I put my poem in there. Movement 3. Withdrawal. We broke up a week later. 6 in the morning, I'm on Instagram. My algorithm has realized that I'm in Oregon and shares with me all these cute gay couples doing things out in the wild. I wanted it desperately. So we had a running list of places we wanted to go. Parts of Oregon they wanted me to see. The outdoorsy things I, a quintessential city boy, would never dream of doing. It was our list, but it was their thing. I just wanted to participate fully in who they were. I saw this cute gay couple hiking together, and they looked so in love. Their hands intertwined, their steps in sync. They were so in tune with each other and the nature around. You would have thought that they'd sprouted from the nature they were walking on. It was beautiful how perfect it looked. Share. And in return, they responded, "I want this, but not right now. I don't have time for a relationship." I heard, "I don't have time for you." And that's what they meant. It killed me. They were my roots. I felt safe. I felt at home. I felt loved because we had a good thing going. I cared. And they didn't. Weeks walked by and I didn't notice. Movement 4. Healing. I'm on the past. And I was just slightly more okay. I realized that I could feel what I had felt for other people. We had something real, but it was over. I knew from it all what real connection was. It ended too early for "I love you," but not so early that there was no love. Something untold, however you describe what I felt.
I retired recently from the University of Oregon. My untold story is that for me, going to college was a fluke. During the middle of my senior year in high school, at the Kamehameha Schools, a school for children of Hawaiian ancestry only, I cut class and hid in the auditorium, which I found unlocked, dark, and empty. I crawled into the last row of the middle seats and lay down. Of course, within minutes, I heard the front doors to the auditorium bust open. I froze, sat up slowly to check the intrusion, and made instant eye contact with my high school football coach, who was entering the auditorium with a group of people. I was convinced I was busted. But to my great surprise, my coach waved for me to join him at the front of the auditorium. There, he introduced me to a college football coach on a recruiting visit. As a tall, skinny, shy kid, I was not a target recruit. I never entertained the idea of going to college. My dad, in a few words, of pure Hawaiian descent, a foot shorter than his two adopted sons, had determined that college was simply not an option for me. His nickname for me was Big Head. For him, a big head was a reliable indicator that I would not be able to care for myself were I lucky enough to reach adulthood. As such, the only horizon I envisioned for my future after high school was to serve Honolulu's finest as a policeman or a fireman, just like my Hawaiian uncles. That was the horizon for a kid growing up in the 1950s in Kalihi, a neighborhood of high-rise housing projects in Honolulu that reflected the racial melting pot of the working class Ohana, families that arrived from all over the world to work the sugarcane and pineapple plantations, and of course, to service the hotels in Waikiki. During my freshman year, I became intrigued with the idea of learning to speak Japanese to honor my neighbor, Mr. Oba, who served as kind of a father figure to my twin brother John and me. As a tugboat driver, Mr. Oba was always around, until he wasn't. He had a great sense of humor. Told us, actually explained the birds and the bees to us in colorful adolescent detail, and extolled the virtues of an astounding world that existed just beyond the edges of the volcanic rock we lived on. In order to learn Japanese, though, required special permission from the Kamehameha schools. You see, I was in section 9-6, close to the very bottom of the academic void barrel. Unlike my classmates who were college bound in sections 9-1 and 9-2, who could take any class they chose, the knuckleheads in 9-6, like me, required special approval from our class counselor, Mrs. Wise. After all, what value would knuckleheads gain from reading Shakespeare or speaking a language other than kind of pidgin English we would speak on the island, huh? So when I asked Mrs. Wise if I could take Japanese, she looked at me and with a casual but direct response said, "Ed, you're too stupid to take Japanese." I thought about that day soliloquy from Shakespeare's Hamlet. To wit, we defy augury. There is special providence in the fall of the sparrow. If it be now, it is not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, it will come. The readiness is all. So, as Big Head in section 9.6, who stoop at the big Japanese, I was the only member of my Kalii Ohana to graduate from college with a degree in English literature, including a thesis on the 18th century romantic poet John Keats, to earn a PhD from this remarkable university, to gain early tenure with promotion at Purdue University, to speak at the White House, and to start a research center here at the University of Oregon to study children with serious academic learning problems. And finally, to retire after 30 years as Dean Knight Professor at the University of Oregon. So to Mr. Oba, to Brenda Johnson Kameginui, to my Ohana, and to all my mentors along the way, including those here at the University of Oregon, and especially Dr. Doug Carney. Indeed, the readiness is all. Aloha and arigato gozaimasu.
Malicious and slanderous gossip. I didn't know what those words meant at the time, but I knew it was bad from how they rolled off the tongue. I tried to speak up in that minute. I tried to explain it was a misunderstanding, but my mom cut me off and said, "Anna, stop talking. No one here believes you." We were in my principal's office 2 days after my 13th birthday, and the day before the holiday break. I was being suspended for the first time in my life. It was a 3-day suspension that was to be continued after the vacation. Why don't they believe me? Was I a bad person? Will this follow me around forever? I had 2 weeks to dwell over this punishment. It wasn't a typical rumor. It was not a harsh comment about a classmate spread throughout the hallways. I honestly didn't know what it was. At 12 years old, it's difficult to articulate yourself in a way where an adult can understand you, especially when your home state views sex education as taboo. What I was trying to report was grooming. But why should a 12-year-old know what grooming is? At my middle school, there was a teacher everyone knew and loved. He wasn't like other teachers, okay? He would swear occasionally, crack jokes, and sometimes he would bring treats to class. I got to know him better in 6th grade, when he was the advisor of a club I joined, and then he helped me when I fell behind in math. At the time, I didn't have any friends, but he felt like one to me. He was the first adult besides my parents whom I felt close to. I could tell this was true for some of my other peers as well. Being this close to someone more mature made us feel like we were finally becoming adults. We weren't aware that his bringing food to class or allowing us to be so personal with him was creating a bill in his mind. A bill he would want all of us to repay. On the first day of 7th grade, I had just gotten a haircut. It was a pretty bold chop, I won't lie. I saw him standing with a group of other girls and decided to approach them. "What do you think of my haircut?" I asked. I was mainly searching for his opinion. They all glanced at each other. Yeah, it's cool, he said through a chuckle. They all burst out laughing. You're making fun of me. I was suddenly self-cautious of the haircut I was once excited about. No, I would never make fun of you. I would make fun of this girl right here, he said, and then proceeded to mess up the hair of the girl he was standing next to. I felt weird, uncomfortable, and oddly enough, jealous. The bond we once had in 6th grade had disappeared over the summer. He had a whole new audience to impress now, so our relationship started to change. He would call me out for making a mistake, he would exclude me from his secret lunches, and he would constantly call home and tell my parents that I was a problem. It seemed like he got what he needed from me, and now I was just a toy to play with. There's a new kind of pain when the person you want to confide in is the one perpetrating the harm. That year, I noticed he was drawn to a friend of mine. She became quiet and was always by his side. Seeing this made me realize I needed to speak up. I wasn't sure what was happening between them, but my gut was telling me to reach out to my friend. When I did, she had told him what I had said, and the next thing I knew, I was in the principal's office being suspended. No questions asked. Even after the suspension, he would continue to harass me. He was very calculated and knew how to keep his behavior a secret and discredit anyone who tried to stop him. I was isolated, terrified, depressed, and extremely invalidated. I began to question my reality. If other people said it didn't happen, then did it? In my junior year of high school, I finally had an answer to this question. I remember the moment. I was in the driveway after school with my sister when my dad called us into the house urgently. He was on the phone, but put it on his shoulder when we walked in. He said, "Anna, we need to go to the police station." Hang on 1 second. But then didn't tell me why for 2 excruciating minutes. After thinking of every possible bad thing I had done up until that moment, he then told me that the teacher had been arrested on child rape charges. Detectives found out about my suspension and they wanted to talk to me. I was finally vindicated. He was arrested. I was shocked. I honestly never thought he would be caught. I felt relief, yeah, but then also anger. All of a sudden, somehow, I became a hero. There were articles, interviews, and I was asked to speak at events. When people found out about what 12-year-old me had done, they used words like courageous, brave, inspiring, and leader. I had adults tell me that my speaking up gave them the courage to do so themselves. I saw an entire community rally behind survivors in the aftermath. But only after he was finally caught. I had spoken the truth 5 years before. Why didn't they just listen to me in the first place? It's not that my story was untold. It just wasn't believed. I haven't told the true story of my wedding to anyone yet. On July 15, 2021, I got married to the love of my life, Kaushal. It was a small, cozy Hindu home wedding. Both of us had returned to Nepal
Our experience of living outside of Nepal had made us dream that we can actually make a decision for ourselves, and it is not disrespectful to anyone. We were balancing between the collectivist culture we grew up in and the individualistic world we were exploring. We were on this journey. I mean, we had already broken the norms by not inviting 400 plus guests, cousins, their extended family, and their extended families. I was a Nepali bride, about to get married. I had been waiting for this moment for years. And the first blessing that I received from the priest was, may you have sons. Not daughters, sons. Not children, sons. Agitated but mindful, we joked to the whole crowd. Why not a child or children? That was our first jab at the patriarchy in this patriarchal wedding. Throughout the wedding, we broke many traditions. I refused to bow down and put my forehead on my husband's feet. We both greeted each other instead. We didn't do dowry, and we dropped many other rituals that raised many eyebrows. In the 9th hour of wedding, that was slowly taking me away from my family and placing me into the groom's family, we were building towards the most symbolic moment of any Nepali Hindu wedding. A moment where the groom places sindoor on the bride's forehead, a mark that signifies that you're married. And at that moment, as I was inhaling the joy and feeling the relief that I'm finally married, I heard someone say, "Kस्तो हो यो? यस्तो मोमेन्टमा त जो पनि हुन्छन्, हेरालाई हाँसिरहेछ, धेरै बोल्ने गफाडी." Meaning, this is supposed to be the most emotional moment of your life, and look at you. You're not crying, no emotions. You are too talkative to be a bride. I paused and I looked around, wondering who would have said that. It was the priest. Scared and in a little bit of shame, I looked around again to see if anyone else had heard what I just heard. Thankfully, no one did. I exhaled in relief. I had just felt the relief and the joy that I got married. And this comment made me question myself. Why wasn't I crying? I got confused. It started to sink into my inner thoughts. Should I have cried? Should I feel happy or proud, sad, guilty? I continued questioning myself. I know I cried when my cousin Susanna Vivian asked that Diju got married. I know I cried when other women around me got married. But why wasn't I crying? Am I an emotionless, heartless bride? Am I an emotionless, heartless daughter? I saw my dad sobbing at the corner. He was more emotional than I was. That day, it was not only the priest who wanted to see me cry. The photographer said he wanted me to look emotional and wanted a perfect shot. Even the cab driver delayed our bidai, farewell, literally to let me cry. And just like that, I spent one of my most beautiful days of my life in confusion, feeling happy but sad, proud but guilty, empowered but helpless. I had been feeling so wonderful, but after that statement, I lost connection to my own wedding. I don't remember anything. applied to me. My parents had done a good job of protecting me and shielding me from patriarchy. My mom often challenged the status quo and decided to have a single girl child. She was asked countless times, Amitsukoya, what about sons? I saw the gender role reversal at my home. My mom earned for the family, and my dad stayed at home taking care of me. But here I was at my wedding, internalizing the priest statement. It took me 3 years to unpack my wedding pictures, to honor my emotions, and 3 years later, when I think about it now, I wonder if I would change anything about how I expressed my emotion that day. Absolutely not. I had the right to feel the sadness of leaving my family and my home, or joy of my wedding, all of my emotions, or none of them. And no priest, no photographer, no cab driver, no neighbor, no other man, or no other person get the rights to decide how I should feel about my wedding, or how other women should feel about their wedding. It is okay to cry. It is okay not to cry. It is okay to express the way you want. I was right in the feeling every emotion I felt that day. And all of my emotions were my emotions. Dhanyavad.
Today is a day of duty, and I am dutiful. WHO, CDC.gov's websites, advisories, briefings, no guidance escapes my vigilance, no precaution is beneath my volition. Unemployment skyrocketing, I spare when sparing is sparse, as I'm still employed, essentially. I ration my reserves, each bag of tea to each sheet of TP has a designation in this wartime effort. I am a law-abiding citizen. So today, still buoyed above bedlam, I awaken to a pantry in poverty. Refrigerator as empty as my stomach, cupboards as exhausted as my stamina for social media. I fashion a mask and fancy a trip to the grocer. Venturing outside for the first time in a fortnight, I take in unconditioned air. So clean, so crisp, as cool as morning dew. I desperately desire to prolong this, take my time. But I dare not dawdle, not while out and about. It isn't illegal, not quite, but a breach of social contract all the same. And I am all too accustomed to the unwritten rules that color consequence. So today, I enter this odd structure, strangely showing signs of sentience. The automatic sliding doors startle me, and the smells of consumable commodity tickle my flaring nostrils. All around me are the masks, revealing a certain surreality. As I engage the task at hand, I know exactly what I need and commence my mission with verve. Weaving in and out and through, like a practiced pilot on a flight plan ingrained in instinct. My movements are swift, purposeful, precise. My quarantine hiatus did not dull the familiarity of rote routine. And after all, I am a regular. I know these aisles like the aisles of my earnest but broken commitments to test you back. By the way, I'll hit you up tonight. I know the back of the store like the back of my hand. I can tell you about Quincy, the cashier from Queens, who moved here to move on. Quincy, who fell in love again with the love of their born-again life at a Hendricks Park community cleanup. Or Stephanie, who chooses to stock shelves because she's shy and won't talk to anyone except me. Sadly, they don't seem to be working today. I do hope they're okay. So today, progress is my basket filling as though seeking to satisfy its own hunger. 4 minutes in, and by the time I reach the 4th aisle, I'm declining the 6th. Can I help you find something? 2 of which are from the same employee from 3 aisles ago. I move on, but I can't move away. You know, it's funny. How do we get away with all this talk about the lack of black leaders when we are followed so faithfully? Awareness flares, anxiety grows, my movement slows, until I'm suddenly frozen and inanimate. In the right aisle, but always the wrong lane. Excuse me, do you have what you need? Barks the foggy-goggled, green-aproned embodiment of America's made-again greatness. We really do need you to be in and out of the store quickly. I'm sure you understand. Sure did. Sure do. This is a moment, the moment. The store shrinks, walls, floor, ceiling, warp concave and convex in sync with my hyperventilation. It's not that I had forgotten who I am and what, where I am and why. It's that I made a choice against obvious odds. My mind reels from the reels I've consumed and consumed me consummately. Of riot and rage, of choking and chasing, of gasps, gashes, and gunshots, belligerent badges, and cackling Karens. The fatal footage of the future I've dreaded is tuned right where I'm headed. You think I'm exaggerating, but I assure you, the scenario is sufficiently statistical. The spotlight's heat, it burns with a particular contempt. A familiar sweat courses its path down my brow and neck. The cloth mask asphyxiates, or maybe I've forgotten to breathe. Look, to be clear, it is not fear that seizes, no. It is an ancestral anger. I still don't know how I know the restraint I show. I mean, am I not in Rome, doing what y'all do? I'm trying to figure out where I roamed wrong. Or when. Was it entering the store or entering this timeline? Was it bringing my own bag? or being born. The dawning is upon me, naive and Catholic, altruistic me, hypervigilant, humanitarian, guidance following, do-gooder, civic responsibility me in regular pants, me in a simple, horizontally striped polo shirt, me armed with nothing but a quarter-filled basket, a bag, and a cell phone. Me. Don't you see? Aggressive and threatening large black male acting suspiciously and disrupting the peace. Don't you see me now? I emanate a threat not even a pandemic could preclude, nor a Quincy, nor a Stephanie, nor a compliant face covering, nor a reusable bag in an eco-conscious, eco-friendly, environmentalist Eugene. So today, as I go about my business, society goes about it too. Today, I am reminded, yes, COVID is contagion. Yes, and our sickness is the flu of me and you. Racism is the virus with no cure.
In a moment, we're going to take a brief intermission. But before that, we don't want to keep these stories trapped in our body. So, on the count of 3, I'd like you all to join me in taking a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there might be some food left, but 10 minutes before we reconvene. Thank you.
directions. That's how I felt the last few years. I was born to a teenage mom, a Latina immigrant, long, dark-haired beauty, a sensitive soul. My dad was 19. He walked away from a football scholarship to put a roof over my head. My first memory was of my dad sitting on the couch, looking up at my mom. He'd been drinking too much. She was threatening to walk out. In my memory, I was clinging to her legs. When the LDS missionaries, the Mormons, first visited, I was this high-octane 2-year-old running around the place swearing. And damn it changed the course of my life. We had the support of a community that surrounded my parents with love and friendship. Mary Ann, who hung out with my mom while the kids played, who shared plant cuttings and recipes. Carl, who played basketball with my dad regularly. And my dad stopped drinking. His brother later died of alcoholism. So did his nephew. I have another memory of my dad when I was 7 or 8. A local football player had died tragically. He looked up the parents and brought me along with him to share his sympathy and his conviction that they would see their son again after this life. In my memory, they were full of gratitude. Later, I had the support of the LDS community when my parents went through bankruptcy and a messy, messy divorce. Youth leaders took me wilderness camping in the Boundary Waters, where I saw a moose drinking at the edge of a lake one early morning, where I learned my own strength, carrying a canoe over my head for over 2 miles. Thank you very much. They gave me opportunities to perform, to sing, to dance. They took chances on me and taught me to lead. They invested in my education and taught me how to share gratitude and grace, even while my family was falling apart. Without this faith community, I wouldn't have had the stability to get an education, let alone to get a PhD or become a professor. Ironically, my career has made it so I don't fit as well in the community, and sometimes I feel like I don't fit anywhere. Fast forward to getting the job at the University of Oregon. A career coach pulled me aside and said, listen, if you're still practicing LDS, you might want to talk to HR for protection, just in case. What? I blew them off. Then, the day before I started, at the UO BYU game, the crowd began chanting, "Fuck the Mormons! Fuck the Mormons!" Yeah. Welcome to the University of Oregon. Despite my best efforts to calm myself, I was really on edge when I met my colleagues for the first time the next day. But I get it. BYU has been blasted on social media for its treatment of LGBTQ students. Like many institutions, its policies have flip-flopped. First giving LGBTQ students hope, then cruelly marginalizing them. I haven't told anyone at UO that I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Until now. I don't want anyone to assume that they know my values, especially when I'm teaching sensitive topics in the classroom. And my daughter is queer. I just met her new girlfriend for the first time. She's beautiful, smart, talented. She's got this loud, generous laugh. And she's been good for my daughter. Something that hurts more than anything in my life right now is that my gift of my life, my wholeness, has been hurtful to her. And at times, a weight that she's had to drag through life. Some have suggested that if I really loved my daughter, I would walk away from the LDS faith. Others think that I shouldn't fully accept my daughter. No way. I'm behind her 100%. Love is a messy, messy business. Few of us get it right consistently. Jesus was a radical teacher, a long-haired hippie. But if you really look at his life, he challenged us to look beyond codes, rules, and institutions and see the humans. Love God, your neighbor, yourself. That message has transformed my life again and again. But after half a century of practicing, I still get it wrong. I can't tell you how many times I almost pulled out of tonight's event. I didn't want you to see me as a hater, a Karen. I want you to see my heart. I've spent too many years showing only part of myself to any given audience, split like those paintings. So I'm here on this stage tonight because I'm not walking away from the messiness. Now, more than ever, we need to do the hard work of sticking with each other and holding space for all of our stories.
I come from a rural town in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan. In our tradition, we don't express a lot. We don't tell our beloved ones how much we love them. We don't tell them how thankful we are for having them in our lives. But today, I feel it's the time to say thank you to some very important people in my life. Mom and Dad, I want to thank you both. I want to say that you are the best Ammi and Abbu in this world. I love you both, not just because you are my mom and dad, but because what you did is incredible. It is something not only me, but this world is proud of. I want to tell you both that the way you two navigated the challenge of having 3 blind children out of 6 is remarkable. I feel sad for all those times when you were told that your children should not be sent to school because they suffer from an incurable disease called retinitis pigmentosa. I remember all those moments when you were told, when you were made to feel amazed, and when you were made to feel embarrassed because of our disability. But you stood by us. I still remember the time when I heard both of you sobbing in your bedroom because of the uncertainty that surrounded the future of your children. But I want to thank you both for being strong and steadfast in front of us in this cruel world. Marty, I still remember the time when you persuaded Dad, Uncle, and everyone around you that your children's education is as important as it is for anyone else in this world. When you decided that you're going to make your children independent and self-sufficient. Abuji, your presence was more comforting than anything else. You did every effort to take us to every social gathering because you wanted us to be confident. And you were mindful that we are not kept away from the society like thousands of other blind children. I still remember you saying, "Dunya jhukti hai, jhukane wala chahiye. The world bends, we need someone to bend it." And I remind this saying all those times when I feel lost. And to my brothers and sisters, I want to thank you all for being ready and willing to help me every time when I needed you. And I don't remember any one of you refusing to help, whether it was day or night, whether it was hottest or coldest days of the year. Busy or free, you always had time for me. Wajah, my elder sister, I remember all those times when you stayed awake all night because the next day was my exam, and you were reading the books loud to me because they were inaccessible to read at my home. Bhaiya, my elder brother, I want to thank you for all those times when you took me to the bus stop in the middle of the night, or spent the whole day with me in the market because I wanted to travel or I wanted to buy a few things from the market. And you never ever said a single word of complaint. And I can never forget you, Professor Shamsur Rahman. You were the first educated blind person my family ever met. You told my family that having blindness is not the end of the world. Rather, it's a new beginning. A beginning to appreciate the world differently but equally. You told us how to get education, how to be successful with this blindness. I want to thank you, sir, for being the one that my family and I needed the most. And to the doctor, I don't remember your name, but what you said to my mom one day that changed the life forever for me and for my family. I remember when you responded to the query of my mom regarding her education, and you were the first doctor who knew the worth of our education. And when you told my mom, "Oh lady, if you're not going to educate these children, are they going to beg to make their living?" That was the day when my parents decided to educate us. And today, I'm standing here talking to these wonderful people, thanking you for the wonderful contribution that you did in my life. I want to thank a number of other people. I wish I had more time to thank my friends, my colleagues, and my teachers. But I wish that everyone had some people like you. As humans, we have a power to make and a power to break. And I'm thankful that you used this power to make my life. I thank you all. Thank you.
It was the perfect sunny end of summer day, but I didn't care. I couldn't feel any of it. I felt distant from the world around me, like I wasn't really there, and I was really not looking forward to trying this whole therapy thing again. But you know how university counseling centers are. I would wait another month if I canceled. So I went, and I sat on a couch in a warm, dim room, and I told her what I could remember about the days when I felt like I was on top of the world, and the days when my legs felt like lead. How I finally stopped having something else to blame. So I'm here. At some point she turned away and Googled something, much like I used to do when I was 12 and trying to diagnose myself, except she has a degree that makes it okay. And then the interrogation began. She asked me, do you often find yourself talking a lot, loud and fast? Always, I told her, like I am with you right now. My friends joke my rapper name would be Eminem, and I made several friends just because they heard me from across the room. Does it feel like a compulsion or like you can't stop? I tried to explain to her how I generally won't stop talking unless I feel like I'm being too much. Then I shut down. I won't say a word. That's when my friends bore me. Then she asked, do you often find yourself flying suddenly from one idea to the next? And I wondered, does she mean every interest I've ever had? The many short-lived hobbies, tools, and art supplies I've barely touched? Or does she mean how for weeks I couldn't stop obsessing over an engineering class I wanted to create, but then I forgot about it overnight? Do you ever feel like you're thinking really fast? So I told her how it usually feels like my mind has 100 tabs open and there's audio coming from all of them. Sometimes when I sit outside, I feel like I'm consciously processing every blade of grass, every color, every person, and every noise simultaneously. But that's normal, right? Do you ever find yourself developing extremely strong, almost irrational feelings over short periods of time? I asked her if my previous relationship counted, how we met at band camp, started dating 3 days later. After 2 weeks, I was in love, without a doubt. Do you frequently find yourself having high energy with less need for sleep or food? And I thought this one has to be a joke. That's literally how you get into this school. But yeah, sometimes I don't feel like sleeping, and I forget to eat for a couple of days, except for my mochas. She went on, in the past 2 weeks, how often have you experienced severe anxiety? Okay, I told her how during a recent breakup, I couldn't even keep a salad down, and during my summer abroad, I had to keep leaving class to hyperventilate in the bathroom. Severe depression. I told her it could be worse. I'm usually able to keep going. When I can't, I just wait it out in bed. Feelings of hopelessness, loss of pleasure. In this climate, I feel overwhelmed by every problem in the world. You add in the ones that my mind creates, and it's just hard to see the good in anything. How often do you feel like these periods usually last? And I thought back to when I got to campus that year, how I felt distant, like it wasn't really real. And 2 weeks later, it was like a light switch flipped and I felt normal again. Actually, I felt fantastic. I just needed to readjust. Then 2 weeks after that, I felt broken again, skipping lectures to have panic attacks. And then she handed me this label. It wasn't the label I was expecting, that my entire family seems to have. This label was bright and dark, heavy and light at the same time. It encompassed how I thought and talked so fast, how I felt and loved so strong and so fast. It held the vibrance and the dullness of the world around me. It was the light breeze and weighted blanket taking turns on my mind. The cycles of feeling like I can walk on water and then like I'm drowning and no one can see or save me. Went into that appointment looking for an explanation for the bad, and I was walking out with a diagnosis that encompassed pretty much everything I thought I knew about myself. It was my superpowers, my empathy and eagerness to stay up all night being productive. And it was my kryptonite, the weight that kept me in bed and the anxiety that paralyzed me. What do you do when your superpower is the same thing as your kryptonite? That day I hid. I left her office and I went directly into the one-room bathroom outside of the counseling center, and I collapsed against the wall, wrapped up in this label, not knowing where I ended and my new bipolar diagnosis began. As much as I wanted to, I could not stay there forever. At some point, I got up, my life went on, and eventually I just stopped looking for the line between me and my bipolar. For better or for worse, I will have this label forever. I will have bipolar disorder forever. It's just another part of my identity. But when I applied for PhD programs, they told me not to talk about it. When I apply for grants, they tell me not to talk about it. Like I have to hide the superpowers I've harnessed and the kryptonite that I will always endure, because the stereotype of being an unpredictable flight risk is more significant than the story of my resilience. But I stand here today, about to finish the second year of my PhD, after just winning funding for the next 3 years, thinking a lot about that initial interrogation, one of the first questions she asked. Do you often find yourself talking a lot and loud? Always.
Dear Mama, thank you for the recipe that you passed down to me. The recipe on how to utterly destroy your daughter's life. The recipe goes like this. For a solid base, start with a thick layer of your own unresolved trauma. Preheat your chaos with an absolutely toxic, unhealthy, abusive, and completely unstable relationship with a sad excuse for a man. Dice up your inability to love and connect to make sure that you are utterly unprepared to emotionally, physically, and mentally care for multiple children. Slice up your skin in one of your many suicides, but be sure to make sure that your daughter sees. I was at school when it happened, but the story goes, when the lady with the badge showed up, you turned her away. You called her a bitch as she stood where the 10 stairs met the door. It took 3 calls from my grandma, from my aunt, from the school. 3 calls to Child Protective Services to finally get someone to investigate. But when they came and snatched us away, I was swimming. No, I was drowning in a sea of utter confusion. Broil this pain and suffering with a one-way ticket to, you guessed it, foster homes. Toss your kids around from placement to placement. Every 6 months, a staff member would gather us to discuss the happenings of our case. You could get us back. You just had to successfully complete a rehabilitation program. Every 6 months, I was hopeful. In every 6 months, you let me down. You go for 2, maybe 3 days, and then the cycle would begin again. Microwave your daughter's feelings of pain, suffering, abandonment, and neglect. Knead in a few family holidays where you try to pretend to be our mom. And for a little extra spice, mince in a little, I don't believe you. He's so nice. When I finally admit that my stepdad touched me. Don't rinse, but be damn sure to repeat. 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 Fuck that. I'm burning this
this recipe. I'm tossing out the book. I'm rewriting my own destiny, my own recipe. Mom, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And the fucked up shit you put me through doesn't have power over me any longer. I'm writing a new recipe for my babies. One where I slather myself in therapy. I do the work. You are my children. My burden isn't yours to carry. I add in a pinch of admitting my own mistakes and trying real hard to learn from them. Every day, I'm trying to be a better person for you. I fold in a layer of my commitment to you. I promise you, even if mommy and daddy don't work out, we'll work together to give you the most loving life. I swirl in a gallon of financial stability while trying to be present, because truly, you are the gift. And I will always, always teach you to talk about the hard things, no longer relying on conceal, don't feel. And for a little extra swag, I'll show you I can make it all the way to the top. An abused, neglected, former foster kid from the motherfucking hood. I'm gonna get this PhD. Watch me rewrite this recipe. I'm claiming our new legacy. For me, my kids, their kids, for generations to come. This is my recipe on how to utterly destroy generational bullshit by Audra Faye Johnston Zamora. Thank you.
We invite you to reach your arms up to the sky to allow for the fullness of our emotions to reach into spaces of growth. 1, 2, 3. Those you hold dearest, the people sitting next to you, the stranger you pass on the street, we are all carrying untold stories. Perhaps we can use this as a bridge for a little bit more love, authenticity, courage, and empathy. Thank you for bearing witness to Intertwined 2024. But before we end completely, we do have a few important things and some special thanks.
I want to especially thank Jacob Faulkner-Jones for this beautiful music accompaniment. Baker for live streaming and all of that. We had 10 story coaches that were working regularly. I want to just name them all: Charlotte Oates Gallagher, Elizabeth White, Eric Brayman, Callum Tate Jones, Jessica Ruth Baker, Mike Murashiki, and Sarah Blanchard, who volunteered their time, community members, alumni who spent weekly meetings with all of the storytellers, and so yay, thank you. I want to thank Tyler and Rory for being with us on this journey and co-creating this amazing event. Flowers for each of the storytellers as well.
And lastly, we need to
give a huge thank you to the person who makes spaces like these possible within the bureaucracy of academia, to the maker behind the magic, and my mentor, my incredible mentor for the past 3 years, Abigail Leader.
Lastly, on your programs, if you got one, there's a QR code that you can go to leave feedback. And also, if you're interested in getting involved with Intertwined, you can talk to me after the show or sign your email up on the green paper in the table over there. We'll also email you about when our next performances are and any workshops that we're holding to help you create stories just like these. And can we get a final round of applause for our